Hello ladies and gentlemen, and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host Brett Murphy, and for today I have a brand new versus video for you all, and it is going to be X versus Pearl. So X and Pearl are both horror movies. They were both directed by Ty West, they both released in 2022, and they are two parts of a trilogy that will conclude in 2023 with MaXXXine. I mean, how often do you actually hear of that happening? Two movies in the same trilogy by pretty much the entire same cast and crew releasing in the same year. It's pretty crazy. But the real question is, which one is better? Well folks, that is the exact question that I aim to answer today. In this video, I am going to be comparing and contrasting X and Pearl across 9 rounds to determine just one winner. Before I hop into the actual video itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my versus videos, so be sure to check that out and I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Round 1. Plot. The plot for X goes, in 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas. But when their reclusive elderly hosts catch them in the act, the cast find themselves fighting for their lives. And the plot for Pearl gives us the backstory on how Pearl became the person she was in X. Trapped on her family's isolated farm, Pearl must tend to her ailing father under the bitter and overbearing watch of her devout mother. Lusting for a glamorous life like she's seen in the movies, Pearl finds her ambitions, temptations, and repressions all colliding. Both of these films' central plots have their merits. X is a love letter and pays homage to classic slashers of the 70s, whereas Pearl is an ambitious origin story. This might somehow already be the closest round yet, and we're only looking at the base plots for these movies. I have to admit though that X's plot is just far more attention-grabbing. It is so shockingly in your face and egregious that you can't help but want to watch. Round 1 is going to go to X. Round 2. Storytelling. X comes off like your typical sleazy, exploitative, horny slasher, but once you actually dive in, you'll find that that is far from the truth. It explores themes of aging, regret, sex, and love. Don't misunderstand me though, there are still plenty of the run-of-the-mill slasher tropes in here. But the characters have surprising depth and the story unfolds in pleasantly unexpected ways. Pearl starts off much slower, a steady build-up until we hit Pearl's breaking point. She's been pushed around by her mother her entire life. She has big dreams and truly believes in herself. As the movie progresses, she steadily gets closer and closer to snapping, and then when she finally does, she becomes who she always was on the inside. Another round that is neck and neck. Both of these movies are certainly entertaining and held my attention from start to finish. But I personally felt that X had the deeper themes and better pacing. Round 2 is also going to X. Round 3. Lead characters. Though most of the characters within X get a fair share of the spotlight, there is no doubt left by the time the credits roll that MaXXXine, played by Mia Goth, is our main character. Especially now, knowing that we are getting a third and final film in this trilogy titled MaXXXine. She dreams big, she's hopeful, determined, promiscuous, and resilient. By the movie's end, she will have you standing, shouting, and cheering, "I will not accept a life I do not deserve." For Pearl, just like X, we have Mia Goth in the driver's seat. Only this time as the younger version of X's main antagonist, Pearl, who she also played the older version of in X. Pearl is a shockingly sympathetic character. Forced to spend her life on a struggling farm with her spiteful and overbearing mother, taking care of her dying father, being forced to cut corners every step of the way like sharing bathwater, only having farm animals as friends, and her husband leaving her to go fight in the war even though he had the opportunity to avoid it. All she wants is to be a star in the movies, to get away from it all and live big just like she dreams big. Mia Goth kills it in both roles. This woman owns 2022 if you ask me. But Pearl is unchallenged as the star of her own self-titled movie. We get to spend so much more time with her, exploring her motives, state of mind, and literally watching her descent into madness before our very eyes. Round 3 is going to Pearl. Round 4. Supporting characters. Alongside MaXXXine in this porn-centric slasher is her fiancé Wayne, her co-stars Bobby Lynn and Jackson, and tagging along are the film crew consisting of Lorraine and RJ. And of course we cannot forget our unforgettable villains, the elderly couple Howard and Pearl. These characters actually shocked me. Based on the trailer and premise for this movie, I fully expected a group of hollow, horny nobodies. Instead, we get characters with depth and actors with range. Pearl unfortunately lacks the long list of support that MaXXXine had in X. Instead, she has her occasionally German-speaking mother, her father who doesn't move or talk at all, that of course being due to illness though, and then some other minor supporting characters that pop in and out like the projectionist and Mitzi. Long story short, Pearl is the star of Pearl, and she really doesn't like sharing the spotlight all that often. The side characters in Pearl aren't bad by any means. In fact, they're actually quite good when they are on screen, but that's fairly infrequently. Round 4 is going to X with ease. Are you looking for the perfect gift for the movie lover in your life? Then look no further than the most unique piece of movie art you could possibly have with Movie Palette. Visit moviepalette.com right now and use code BAM15 at the checkout for 15% off your order. And now, back to the video. Round 5. Style and Aesthetic. Like I mentioned earlier, X is very clearly a love letter to 70s slashers. In particular, I believe that Ty West and his crew were most heavily inspired by arguably the most iconic 70s slasher, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. From the outfits to the farm setting and an overall dirtier and grimier feel and look to the movie. Pearl, on the other hand, is a complete 180 to X. It's set in 1918 at the tail end of the First World War, and despite most of it taking place on the same farm, this is way back in its glory days. It's bright, colorful, and filled with life and music. I loved this total change, and despite coming from almost all the exact same people that worked on X, it felt fresh and inspired. Like most of the rounds when it comes to these versus videos, it is very much so going to come down to personal preference. If you prefer the darker toned and dirtier vibed 70s throwback, then go with X. But for me, Pearl felt like an absolute breath of fresh air. I loved the style and aesthetic that they went for, and I really don't feel like they could have done it any better. Round 5 goes to Pearl. Round 6. Music and Sound. Both of these films were composed by Tyler Bates, with Chelsea Wolfe contributing to X and Tim Williams contributing to Pearl. Both films contain some fantastic composing from Bates. Moments of heightening tension, dark ominous mystery, and shocking brutality. But just like the styles of the movies themselves, the music woven throughout Pearl just gives it so much more life and personality. On top of the music, when it comes to the sound design and sound mixing, these movies are practically on par. Blood splattering, axe splitting, shotgun blasting, all of it was on point. I'll have to give the slight edge to Pearl here for that dash of era-appropriate music and dance numbers. Round 6 goes to Pearl. Round 7. Cinematography and Visuals. Both of these movies were shot by Elliot Rocket, and though there are definitely similarities that show off his distinct style in both movies, I also think that he did a superb job at separating the movies based on their different styles and time periods. Like I mentioned earlier, once again, X pays a lot of homage to 70s slashers, with dark, dank basements, claustrophobic, eerie hallways, and then of course you throw in the sex scenes that are plentiful in here as well. Whereas Pearl felt like a surreal alternate reality because most of it is told from Pearl's perspective. But X also had some of the best, most unique and creative foreshadowing that I've seen in recent memory. And pretty much all of it is shown, not told, which is just the best way to go. Once again though, pick your poison. For me, I liked the darker, more mysterious, and claustrophobic feel of X. And so round 7 is going to go to X. Round 8. Horror elements. X doesn't hide what it is at all. When you're heading in, you know that you are getting a straight up slasher. Though I have said many times just how much this one did surprise me, it in no way, shape, or form shies away from what it is. The kills are shocking, they are bloody, and they are brutal. Like I just touched on, what may be even better than the kills themselves is the extremely clever foreshadowing of every character's death earlier on in the movie. Either way, it delivers on the tension, it delivers on the suspense, and it delivers on the kills. For Pearl though, there's nothing that's really overtly scary in Pearl. She isn't being hunted or stalked, she isn't running or hiding to save her life, she just flat out isn't the victim. Pearl is a prequel, so we know that she's not going to die. Where the real terror comes from though is the endless, agonizing, and nail-biting waiting for her to snap. You know it is coming. She is not the hunted, she is the hunter. We are just sitting there, helpless, being teased, constantly waiting for the break. When things finally start to go down, it delivers just like X. And that is all thanks to the visceral ruthlessness of its main character. I believe that both of these movies actually do deliver on the horror elements, just in very different ways. Pearl just constantly has you waiting and waiting and waiting at the edge of your seat for her to finally snap and just start chopping everybody up. Whereas X is a slasher right out of the gate. Once again, like many of the other, if not all of the other rounds, it's going to come down to which you prefer. Do you like the slow, suspenseful build-up of Pearl, or do you like the insanely over-the-top, crazy, brutal, bloody kills in X? For me, I am a slasher fan through and through, so this round is going to go to X. Final round, Memorability. This round is 100% going to be based off of your overall thoughts and overall enjoyment of each individual movie. I liked both of these almost equally. I would give them both an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5 stars. But for very, very different reasons. Which I think is also the biggest reason that Ty West and his crew deserve a massive round of applause. These movies managed to feel so closely connected but couldn't possibly be further apart at the exact same time. I felt Pearl was slower paced and had the less interesting side characters, but nailed its style and aesthetic, and Mia Goth gave one of my favorite leading performances in recent memory. Whereas X was a complete surprise. It had intriguing characters, much deeper and thought-provoking themes, and brutal kills. However, at times it leaned just a little too much into its inspirations, and could occasionally veer into the typical slasher tropes that felt a little tiring at times. But since I have to choose just one, I think I might prefer X by the slightest margin. I just feel it's the more rewatchable of the two and has stuck in my head longer because of how much I was thrown off by its complexity. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not the most brilliant thing since sliced bread or anything like that. But when you head in fully expecting a generic horny slasher and get something like this, well, it sticks with you. This final round is also going to go to X. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with which movie took each round and who my overall winner was. While you're at it, be sure to let me know down in the comments below what other versus videos that you would like to see. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed one, and be sure to check out my channel if you are a movie lover. This is the place to be for you. I've got many other versus videos, rankings, top 10s, tier videos, and so much more. So if any of that piques your interest, be sure to smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.